Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, on a Thursday is Joey. Joey, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing all right. It's camp. My kids are at camp right now, and there's supposed to be a thunderstorm rolling through around 3, so I'm hoping not to get called
Nice.
away. But I think that it's camp is they're having a lot more fun. I was worried that they were going to not have fun, but they're having a super fun time. They're playing with all their friends, and it's good. It's nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad they're having
it's
fun.
about time. The kids are getting to be kids.
Yeah, they're not having to wear, as far as I understand it, they're in cohorts. So when they get there,
Mhm.
the counselor can take off the mask too, and if they're all in the same cohort, it's an interesting situation because, like, if this was teachers, they'd have you believe that this is very dangerous, right? But as it's
Yeah.
like camp and kids are, they're outside, but they're having a blast. The kids are playing and stuff,
Mhm.
and they get to see other people's faces. So that's nice. It's nice, and the
It's
kids.
important.
Yeah, well, they're at an age where they really like playing outside, and like the forest is
Mhm.
magical, and like a campfire in the middle of the day is like the coolest thing you could possibly have. So that's fun. It's super fun that they're having so much fun.
Yes, that's awesome. I'm very happy for them and for all
Indeed.
kids that get to be kids.
Yeah,
Finally.
a return to normal. That's kind of what I'm trying to get there. But anyway,
Yes.
let's in speaking about our politics and how things are going out in Vancouver. And do you know people in Vancouver? I don't really know a lot of people out that far west.
I know some, not a lot,
Not a lot. So you
but I
haven't
do know.
heard you haven't heard people complaining about the gas prices. I've been seeing it popping up.
Yeah.
People have been taking pictures of gas prices and saying, "Holy smoke, this is very expensive." And I talked about it on my show. The last time gas prices were this high in Ontario, anyway, was when gas per oil per barrel was $100, and people were losing their mind. It was $1.30 a liter, and now oil is $70 a barrel, and we're paying $130 a liter for gas. People are like, "Wow, that's nuts!" But in Vancouver, it's $1.72, and this guy says it's 65% taxes, and he talks about the tax makeup of the
Mhm.
gas taxes, and 65 cents per liter is taxes. 65 cents. And he says the government
Yep.
is just increasing that. They want to increase the carbon tax by 400%. They want to increase the clean fuel standard, which increases gas prices. It's a carbon tax by another name. They want to do this, and they want to bring it out across the whole country. Now, BC has had a carbon tax, and I'm diatribing here, I'm going long, but BC has had a carbon tax since 2008, and their emissions have increased. They haven't decreased,
Yeah.
they've increased. It's a whole shadow economy that you and I can't join unless you have some kind of magic wand or something. I'm not entirely sure how to join the carbon economy.
I don't know.
Do you know
Maybe
how?
if we started like a website and just like charged people voluntarily to, feel good by paying that, what is it, like a sin tax?
Yeah, yeah.
They used to have like reparations in the Catholic Church. So
This is the
maybe
same
if we
thing.
did that, because that's really what a carbon tax is. It's
I
just,
I looked
you
into
know,
it. I looked
yeah.
into it because I wanted to do that. I did. I really did. I was like, this is such a good like, oh my goodness, can you do this seriously? So I was like, how do you qualify for this? So it has to
Mhm.
be a mitigation strategy, and it has to like adhere, because I think I talked about it on my show too, but it has to adhere to certain things. You have to like,
Okay, I will take the bus and public
yeah,
transportation
no,
if
no.
people give me carbon money.
No. In order to qualify to get the funding or whatever, because you have to qualify to get this. Like, you have to be a
Mhm.
registered thing to get this, and in order to be a registered, carbon offset, you have to be doing certain specific things. And I remember reading through it, thinking like, well, there's like no way like Joe Schmo is gonna is gonna
No,
get
your name
the
has to
access.
be Al Gore, David Suzuki.
Yeah,
There's a few others, but those are probably the two biggest
yeah,
players
yeah.
in the carbon
Yeah,
tax or
yeah.
carbon
It's
credit.
like it's like
Yeah.
it's like buying a Tim Hortons franchise, right? Like in the 90s,
Mhm.
like everybody was doing it, and now you can't buy a Tim Hortons franchise, right? Like it's like if you could afford to buy into a Tim Hortons franchise, like that's what I'm saying. The barriers are so high. So like it used to
Yes.
be, you could get into this, but they've made the barriers so high that there's no way that a regular person would be like the loan to be able to generate these carbon offsets
for the
alone.
plebs, Mark.
Hey?
Come on, it is not for the plebs. It is for the rich to get richer.
Yes. Yeah.
On feel good vibes, apparently.
That line their pocket because we're making carbon something or other go away. I don't know. So are you seeing any price increases of gas around where you guys are at, like in Alberta? How's that looking?
There have been some. It's not astronomical at this point. Although, I mean, I still go back to whenever I used to drive because I don't drive anymore.
Yeah.
But when I used to drive, the price has probably gone up just about $1. Because whenever I was driving, it was, a high price was like 53 cents.
Oh, wow.
So
is it $1.50 in Alberta?
And
is it $1.50 in Alberta right now?
It's I think the last time I looked, it was about $1.35.
$1.35. So I would say that that's pretty astronomical in Alberta. Like in Alberta, Canada, right? We're an oil producing country, and they make it there. Like it's like, hey,
make it.
Don't refine it.
Pull it out of the ground. But then we send it down to the States to be manufactured or refined, and then we sell it back to Eastern. Well, we don't, but the Americans sell it back to Canadians in the East for a premium. Mm-hmm. So that makes a lot of sense. We were like from the 1970s, we were supposed to be that was our goal, was to become oil self-sufficient. Yeah. We have so failed. And a lot of it has to do with the horrible, horrible policies of the federal government.
Do you think that the failure, do you think that the failure is part of the reason for that is the climate change studies that cropped up post 2000 or post 1978 was it that was the standard zero, or 79 was the 0 point, right? They're saying, everything like this is the average temperature here or whatever. I don't know. So interesting that the 70s, they're like, we're going to be a self-sufficient nation with our own oil. We'll have pipelines that send oil and it'll be so cheap. And now we're in a situation where they're like, not going to happen, everyone. How about
But part of that was because of the oil embargoes. So there was issues in the Middle East, which caused the cost of oil and gas to go like through the roof. So what we thought in North America, the United States and Canada, and that was part of the NAFTA agreement, was that we would become a continent that was oil self-sufficient. And Alberta played a huge role in that. Mm-hmm. But of course, Trudeau doesn't Pierre Elliott Trudeau, just like his son, really doesn't like Alberta and doesn't like the idea of Alberta having this resource that could be so beneficial to all of Canada. But I mean, there again goes into some of the way that this country is divided upon itself through the federal issues that are going on. So for example, Quebec, they have their hydroelectric. That's theirs. It belongs to them. Mm-hmm. And nobody's saying any different. Manufacturing, whatever comes out of Ontario, that's theirs. That's their economy, period, end of. Mm-hmm. But in Alberta, where we have this oil resource that is amazing, that's not ours. Yeah. According to the mindset, not legally, but the mindset in the East is oil and gas belongs to all Canadians. So there's this different way of looking at what we do in each province. So it's almost like the West have become, they've always been the producers of these resources. And because of the legal system, the way that Canada is set up, it's supposed to belong to Albertans, but that's not good enough for the East. They want to own that because it's a natural. I'm not doing it justice in the explanation, but it's just so frustrating. Yeah. And the other day, Jagmeet Singh announced his big jobs plan in Canada because everybody's like the Million Jobs March. Each of the different platforms, they're obviously getting ready for an election. All of them, because they're out stumping the hustings everywhere.
I had a rumor. I had an unofficial rumor today. Well, unofficial. I heard a rumor from a reliable source that August will be a federal election. If it's August, I'll be very surprised, because if it's August, that means whoever is not running again in the freshman 2015 Trudeau liberal red wave is
Yep.
their pensions are at risk. Like I was of the firm belief, and I don't know if I think the election's actually going to be called in August. If it's called in August, I'll be very surprised. But all of that said, I could see it happening, and people are saying that yes, they're gonna call it, but they're gonna call the election in August. But yeah, all of the platforms, like O'Toole said, 1,000,000 jobs, Singh's saying 1,000,000 jobs, right? But
Yeah.
there's a caveat
But
with
where are those
Singh's
1,000,000
promise.
jobs?
Yeah, where are they?
Because Singh is talking about, oh, it's all going to be Canadian products.
Right.
But he's not talking about the things that make those Canadian products or fuel those Canadian products, which is the oil and gas industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's off the table because we know, and I tried calling the NDP HQ and asking them, okay, so if it's going to be made in Canada jobs, made in Canada products that we're doing all of these retrofits and infrastructure projects and stuff with, what about Canadian resources? I mean, Jagmeet Singh is supposed to be representing Surrey, BC, which is softwood lumber. So is the softwood lumber going to be part of that whole 1,000,000 jobs thing, that made in Canada stuff? Or are we going to be buying, like, is this only about jobs in Eastern Canada, or is this about jobs in the entire country? Because it seems to me that, I mean, he's doing it blatantly, really, in a covert kind of way. But what about the resources? The west part of this country, the main economy is about resources. That's what we've got. The east is about manufacturing. We could work really well together and feed each industry and do phenomenally well, but that doesn't seem to be the way that our politicians federally think.
Well, and I see this a lot. It seems like they focus wholly on the wrong things all the time, and like focusing on the dangers of a pipeline when the benefits clearly outweigh the risks, right? Like, people are going to use the oil. Are we importing Saudi oil that burns cleaner than Canadian oil? Then okay, maybe we should look at getting Canadian oil as cheaply as possible from A to B and being self-sufficient. And it's very interesting that that's not a consideration that's being looked at widely. But you made a lot of good points. But I think that it's interesting. You're talking about softwood lumber as a resource. So softwood lumber gets harvested, oil gets mined, whatever you call it, extracted, pulled out of the ground. I don't know what the term. I don't know what the term for actively extraction.
There is mining.
Is it mining?
Extraction.
Extraction?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Extraction. We also have mining of all kinds of different things in the West.
But it's classified differently. Yeah. But I want to get to, like, it's classified differently within regards to how, even I think through the 80s, like through the EPA, through environmental lenses, and this is all through government documents. So I'm not saying that they're totally right and this is exactly how our country should be run. I'm saying that these snakes have been in on it forever. They looked at this and thought, I know how we can take advantage of this and make it seem like we're not, like, make it seem like, and also we can pantomime a little bit that these Alberta people have a say when we'll make it so that they don't really have a say. And then we'll make French a mandatory language in all elite circles and Yahtzee, right? Like now we are where we are. But like in the 1980s, it was hard to see because, I guess the 1980s was booming for Canada. Did we go through the oil and gas crunch as well?
Oh,
I was a baby.
We did,
in 1981.
but at that time, the I covered it in my book. So, and they have tried 6 Ways to Sunday to try to get control of the oil industry in Alberta by any means possible, and some of the most nefarious ways you can possibly imagine. Generally Trojan horses. But in the 70s, with the oil embargo and the issues in the Middle East that made oil so expensive, then Alberta's oil industry boomed hugely.
Yeah.
And by the early 1980s, the NEP came in, and there was a lot of stuff within the NEP that retarded the development of the Alberta oil sands in whatever way they possibly could.
What's the NEP? Sorry. just for people who don't know?
The National Energy Program,
Okay.
which was brought forward by Pierre Elliott Trudeau.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of it was to essentially nationalize oil in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
which meant taking the ownership of Alberta oil away from Albertans and making it belong to the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they did that, because they're, according to our constitution, that's not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is produced or economically brought forward by each individual province belongs to that individual province. And there were a lot of battles over that in the prairie provinces in particular, historically.
Yeah.
So during Pierre Elliott Trudeau's reign of terror for Alberta, he did within the NEP, there were all of these little pieces that would make it difficult for outside investors to be able to invest in the oil sands.
Mm-hmm.
And it would make it so that anybody who invested outside of Alberta would actually get help through the federal government. They would give financial and legislative help and all this sort of stuff. So it's basically drawing the power out of Alberta and the oil sands at that time.
Yeah.
And it has hurt. And that's, I mean, people are always saying, oh, Alberta doesn't have a leg to stand on. They've got nothing to whine about. Well, excuse me. We have been under attack economically from our federal government almost from the inception of the province. So I think we got a leg to stand on.
Yeah. Well, and it is quite
and
interesting.
then we pump all this money into the country without complaint. There's actually a business guy that said, just we'll give you the money, just let us work, let us do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what the federal government wants. They're willing to give us money so long as we use it in the right way. That's the other thing that I just love. Every other province is getting, here's $1 million here, here's like 10 million there, here's whatever. And Alberta hurts, and we go, okay, we need some help. They send us some money, but they tell us, okay, this is specifically for this purpose. Like, we're children. It's like, really?
Yeah. But the federal government sends, so like all the money that comes into a provincial coffer, they get to decide anyway. Even if the federal government says you have to do this is healthcare money from the feds. It has to go to healthcare. Doug Ford could be like, okay, and then like put it into infrastructure if he wants to, and be like, yeah, it's healthcare. But like, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you that there is. I think that it's interesting that fundamentally the federal government does not want the oil industry thriving in Canada, but they're just fine with supporting getting oil from like Saudi Arabia or Middle Eastern countries, but they don't want it from Alberta. Like, they pointedly don't want Albertans working. They don't want to give or get Albertans anything. And that's strange. That seems strange. Is that strange? That's strange to me, right?
It's very strange. And it has been an ongoing problem. You look at even the Canada Wheat Board, which only was for Western, like the prairie provinces. Ontario had their own wheat boards.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So again, it's this thing where the federal government wants total control over the prairie provinces.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain really why, except that the West is resource rich and sparsely populated.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't even have the levers of control to be able to say no to anything.
Well, that's
because we just don't have the votes.
We don't have the votes, right? But that's how I think everybody feels like at this point in time, because the power has been redistributed to a small group of people in Ottawa, and that's like the PMO and Trudeau's inner circle. And if you're not on the inside, like from judges to there, it seems like there are gatekeepers and people in place who are making sure that any challenge is defeated. I mean, we're 18 months into this now?
Well,
like.
And okay, here's another one just to add insult to injury.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In Alberta, generally what happens, and we're doing it again this October, we vote for who we want as a member of the upper house, right?
Yeah.
So this year, just like when Trudeau was here, he apparently was talking to Nenshi,
mm-hmm.
the mayor of Calgary that's now stepping down,
to
actually slip him in as a senator.
Yeah.
So he's going against the tradition that has been around since, I believe it was the 90s when we started electing our senators.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's going against that too.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
we
mean,
Albertans don't get a say.
yeah, they're political opportunists, and
Mhm.
it is shocking what Canadians will just let go. It's like, all right, well, but I was shocked. To be fair, I thought you would see. I thought you would see a lot more pushback against Biden. Like after what happened in 2020, I thought there would be a lot more discontent about Biden. And
Yeah.
right or wrong, it's not my country, right? Like I don't know, but I thought that there would be a lot more trouble. I thought that there would be a lot more upset, angry people. But so far, I mean, he's destroyed. He's not fit for office, or he's destroying quite a lot of what Trump did. But it's interesting to watch the whole thing implode. Like the people who were Orange Man bad are now like, ooh, that Biden guy's not so great. Like it's a very interesting situation.
Maybe we were wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that they're that self-aware yet.
It will be.
Maybe.
Just wait for their entire economy to tank and people go hungry. Then, maybe.
I hope not. I really do. Like, there's a lot. I was watching Back in Time for Dinner, and then Further Back in Time for Dinner. And so it went through people's what they ate for dinner over 100 years in Britain. And what the UK used to do for a census is they would ask people to make notes about what they served their families. And they kept notes for 100 years, from 1900 to 2003, I think they stopped. Maybe it was 1999. Anyway, they stopped in the early 2000s. So they had this, so they made this television show. So it's shocking to watch, like, Britain go through a wartime, what was it called? Ration diet. And people were eating less meat in a week than I eat in a meal. And that I'm shocked by that. So I have seen history. I've looked at Venezuela. I've seen people eating pets, right? And just like going, like, that's scary. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen, right? Like, I don't want anybody to have to learn a lesson in that way ever, because that means that things have gone so poor and so badly. And I mean, like, what's happening in Johannesburg, how do you say that? I don't know, it doesn't matter. In South Africa, haha, sneaky.
Johannesburg, yes.
Is it Johannesburg? Okay. But what's happening there is shocking too, right? And like, this is 2021. You think, oh, we're a modern world where we can feed 9 billion people, right? Like, or close ish.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
so
we can if we choose to.
Well,
and that's the difference.
Yes and no. Like, there are, as we're talking about levers and power situations within just our province, there is a situation in World War II where the choices that Winston Churchill made ended up in a famine in Europe, right? Or in India, excuse me. And like, that was human caused, right? Like, that didn't have to happen, but there was a war and there was all sorts of stuff. And, because none of that's a good excuse, right? That's not reason for all of that suffering and stuff. But these things happen, right? And man, I hope we're not watching that snowball accumulate again, because, the Holodomor happened, and like, this is not that long ago. Like, it's not that long ago. And goodness me, if we have to learn a lesson.
And I mean, that's the thing. We should know better. Why don't we?
That's a good question. I don't know. How about this? Mark Slipinski. I think that's a great name. Mark Slipinski. Every statue and building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And the process is continuing day by day, minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. That's from 1984, of course. And he is referencing, or he's talking about Dundas Street being renamed because it's so darn racist. Those racist people who live on Dufferin Street because it's called Dufferin Street. What? We've gone round the bend. Right? We've got so much money. We've just got beaucoup de bucks to spend on renaming streets. I heard there were 60 streets in Toronto under review for their racist name history, right? If your name is too racist.
Well, you remember that Glory Hole Park that, you made that mistake on?
Yes.
I mean, maybe that's the new names.
There we go. Oh, goodness. Yeah, well.
They've desensitized us to everything.
Dr. Tam.
Why not?
Dr. Tam Street West. Stay Safe Avenue. Be well. It reminds me of and I make these references too much. It reminds me of Demolition Man. And it feels like we're
Yes.
living in Demolition Man, where John Spartan wakes up and he's like, "What in the world has happened? You people are crazy." And then him and Sandra Bullock, they attempt to have sex, and he's like, "What? Why are you putting this thing on my head?" All of like, I feel like if I fell asleep in
All of
2018,
the dystopian movies
Yes.
and TV shows that we and books that we've read for years, it's all happening.
it's all been see, it's been soft disclosure. It's been like I was watching. I started my show with it today. Yesterday we were watching pure propaganda, just pure pointless propaganda. I try and watch better movies, but we watched all the other X-Men, and they're terrible. They're awful, terrible movies. But anyway, we're watching this one, and Apocalypse says, like everything they've built will be destroyed or torn down, and we'll build back better.
Oh,
Not
no.
exactly, not exactly. But I was like, oh, like yeah, basically, I was like, holy smoke. This is from 2018. So, man, like the whole world is Apocalypse is like putting on a suit, like from the X, and stepping into Joe Biden. He's going to have 2 scoops of ice cream any minute. Brain freeze.
That's so decadent.
Yeah.
Let them eat cake, right?
Right, exactly. So, okay, the wholesale renaming of our history, Apocalypse notwithstanding. 1984 Animal Farm, which authoritarian nightmare best describes where we're at?
V for Vendetta.
Yeah, I guess that is the best one. Yeah.
I love V for Vendetta. It's one of my favorite movies ever. Even though it's just absolutely littered with most of the crap that I usually hate, but it's done so well.
It is done very well. They did a very good job with it, and it's very entertaining as well. I guess the propaganda was harder to see back then because it wasn't literally happening in real time in front of your eyeballs on the internet.
Well, and you never would have thought that was possible because, I mean, okay, so not to get all biblical and stuff on people, because I know some people really have visceral bad reactions to it, but you read Revelations and it's like, whoa. I never thought this stuff could actually be going on, but wow. Because there's places that are saying if you don't get the C19er V thing, that deal, because I think this is still on YouTube.
C19. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, what?
Code.
Yeah. The coof. Yeah.
Then you can't drive taxis. Like there's taxis that you cannot get into. They insist that you have
Uber thing,
some kind of documentation. There's a thing where people have been asked to leave businesses without proper documentation. There's all of these different things that we won't be able to access.
Yeah.
And you listen to Jerry Butts. I mean, why? But if you want to know what insanity is going on in the world, just listen to Jerry Butts.
I was going to say you have to know. You have to know what your enemies and like
know that
enemies, but like if you're a conservative minded person, it benefits you to understand what the liberal minded people are talking about. It benefits you to understand their arguments. It benefits you to have well thought out and logical rebuttals. Although why you'd bother these days, I don't know.
I was going to say, well, it used to be a good thing.
It used to be.
Now it's like, well, if you're arguing, well, you are that thing that you're arguing. So, like, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you watch a Donald Trump rally and you don't immediately turn it off in complete disgust, you are a literal racist and terrible, whatever.
Obviously.
Well, I think it's super.
Unless you're a journalist forming your bias opinion.
Yeah, I think. Okay, so I watched. We'll wrap this up soon. But I watched that movie about Howard Stern, and do you remember Private Parts? I think it was called Private Parts. Howard Stern.
Yes.
It was
about. I think I watched it years ago.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't watched it since like 1997. Like since when it came out. But he in the movie. When he first takes over the radio station and he starts talking, the little intern guy is like, they hate him, right? And and he's like, well, hold on a second. Let me qualify that. He said the people who like him a lot and they listen for a long time, but the people who hate him listen for twice as long and they call in twice as much. Like they hate him, but they love him. Yeah. Like, and it's like, okay,
they love to hate.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and I think that this was maybe and I think that people like Goebbels and the propagandists of the people who kind of set the tracks for where we are now.
Yeah.
They knew people love to hate, right? And if you go to Facebook, it's if you're addicted to Facebook, pay attention to what you do on that platform, because the best way to hook somebody back, and it may be different now, but when I was on Facebook, and this is 2016, the best way to have people reopening that app and putting eyeballs on that app is to have them into an argument. And I've said this before. I talked about it in the 2019 election. But the best
Twitter?
way to get... Yeah, well, right. Argument. These
all
things are
designed
designed to exploit people wanting to be right, coming back. And that's what they do. That's how you get eyeballs, right? Yeah. Argument. It's crazy. Yeah. So, all right, last words. Where can they find you, Julie?
Best place, well, other than Twitter,
fair enough,
where I like to get into Twitter spats. You can find all of my links on jillydavis.com, and that's Jilly with a G.
Nice.
Just to confuse people.
It confused me. No, I got your name pretty quick, didn't I? All right, and you can find me at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co. That's my scratch pad. That's where I write things down that I'm working on, etc., etc. And SpeakingMoistly.co is our back catalog. You can find Jilly and me and Greg and me as well. And well, I think that's about it. So the Prime Minister will play us out. Maybe if the mouse is working. It's not working. This always, at the end of the show, it's always ridiculous. It's like a gong show. Okay, is this going to work now? Here we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. I pushed the button. It's not going to do anything. It's going to play. All right, hold on a second here. This is ridiculous.
He's being...
Speaking moistly.
There it is.
Speaking moistly. 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Oh, what a terrible image.